Welcome to the Star Trek Discovery After Show. Speaking today about season 4, episode 5. I, as always, am Christian Blatt, joined as always by Nikki Bailey.
Hey, Christian.
Good to see you. Thank you for being here, and thanks for talking Discovery as always. Our first, I mean, it's not the first episode without Tilly in it, but it's our first since she left. And we heard her little voiceover with the previously in Star Trek Discovery. I'm like, is she going to be back already? Nope, guess not. But we got to see her in a clip. Let's always like to start big picture. What did you think of this episode, which is called The Examples?
I was a little impatient in this episode. I wanted, I don't know what I wanted. I just wanted it to move faster, I think. Like I spent the whole hour kind of being like, okay, why are we talking about this? Why is this like you don't have time for this much conversation when the planet's about to be destroyed by a weird anomaly. But other than that, it was great.
In the marketing for Ridley Scott's Alien, they say in space no one can hear you scream. Sometimes I wonder, in space no one can hear paint dry, and this season has felt a little bit like that. I don't think that the stories themselves have been bad, and I really appreciate getting some character development and some building, and they try and sprinkle in enough adventure and excitement. A little bit less this week. There wasn't really a threat. Yes, the DMA was there, but it wasn't. There's nobody getting shot at really. You just had sort of those. I don't even know what those landmine like mushroom creatures were, but that was like the big threat that we had, which was fairly easily figured out. But there really is. I know that we're moving along pieces on a chessboard very slowly with figuring out the DMA. I mean, we're 5 episodes in, and the idea that maybe this isn't naturally occurring, I'm like, didn't we say that? Maybe no, not week 1, but I believe we said that in week 2.
We did say that.
So I'm sorry, but you and I are both smarter than Paul Stamets. I just
Clearly.
have to say it now. And he can think what he wants about that, but we really felt like that was pretty likely. But just sort of this realization, and it's important to try and figure it out, but man, I really hope they figure it out next week. I'm
Yeah.
starting to get into that place. With the burn last season, it didn't feel like it was like, is next week going to be when they tell us? They seem to have been enough to keep me, and it's not that I'm disinterested, but it's like I am hoping for more. And
Yeah.
if it happened a little faster, that would also be great. And tell us in the chat whether you're watching live or the archive version. Do you feel like we're being harsh? And do you enjoy watching paint dry? Maybe maybe I'm just no, but do you feel like is it the little boy Star Wars fan in me that's used to everything happening so fast and so loud, or are we actually onto something? Where it really is. I don't know. It's just taken a while. I think.
And
Go ahead.
I was going to say some of it is just the way that the show has been done so far is we haven't had a lot of super slow episodes. We haven't had a lot of get to know the character, spend a lot of time explaining. So for this season for us to be having this opportunity to get to know the characters is really nice, but also can we do it in a way that maintains some of the excitement that we like about Discovery?
Yeah.
So I think that's the challenge is like give us the character stuff, but also like we wanna still be enjoying the vibe of Discovery and the adrenaline and the anticipation.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree, and I'll say again, the show really wasn't boring when Emperor Georgiou was still around. She always kept things interesting,
She
and
always, even if it was just with a great comment, she had
yeah,
something.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly, and I think that as much as I miss Tilly, I feel like that presence has become the lack of that presence. I think that the season, previous season, season three, ended fine once she was gone. I think that they were on a good track by then, but I at least there was some sort of really like mean girl level conflict with famed scientist Ron Tarka, who comes in and is like, "Oh, I can out Paul Stamets. Paul Stamets. I can be a bigger jerk than he is." And I like Stamets, but his professional demeanor sometimes leaves something to be
yes.
desired. But not only did we get to meet him, I think that they knew at this point in the season, people were going to ask, "What did you ask last week about somebody who was missing?" You wanted to know where Tig Notaro was.
Oh, I did. I forgot about that. And there
Yeah,
she was. Yeah.
and there she was. So it's like they knew. They're like, "Nikki, don't worry, she's back." And first of all, I was glad she was back, and I think that to sort of be sniping at either side of Stamets is really what she's best at.
She's so
So
good.
yeah, and her comment that this is the closest you ever came to killing us, and that's saying something. So I was glad she was there, but Ruan Tarka actually had my favorite line of the episode. "You might not like me, but I love me." And I've never wanted to get a tattoo in my life, but now I've at least got a phrase that if I ever
There it
decide
is.
to, that's it. Talk a little bit about some of those dynamics and, trying to test out this theory where let's just say it's a good thing that Mr. Saru was there babysitting this little science experiment.
Yeah, I was a little kind of taken back by the fact that Saru stayed with them and that he had decided that he was gonna stay and oversee everything that happened. But I'm glad that he did because Tarka, I guess, somehow bewitched Stamets in some way so that Stamets lost his mind, putting the ship in more danger than it needed to be. And I thought Tig's comment at the Reno's comment about that's as close as you've ever come to killing us was so perfect because hello, what are you doing?
Yeah, it's like if Mr. Saru were not there, then it was like Stamets, as much as he didn't like Tarka, man, was he eager to please him? And he's
He
like, "Well,
really
yeah, can
was.
we just try a little bit more? I mean, what about if it's like my kids asking before bedtime if they could just watch one more video, even though we had the conversation that you're gonna watch, you're gonna watch one more and then we're gonna go to bed. Yeah, but what about one more, Mr. Saru? Can we just turn it up a little bit? No, damn it, you're gonna kill us. And I don't know. I'm glad that cooler heads prevailed. But and yeah, Craig, great to see you, Craig. Mentioned that his favorite line from Reno was "Things in space don't just disappear," as Stamets glances at her. Is very welcome. I know that she's back in a limited role this season, but when we get Reno, I'm excited that she's with us. Um, I think that the character, there have been characters like Tarka that have come into the show before. The sort of like literally the know-it-all scientist who knows more than whether it be Geordi or Scotty or really anybody.
Right.
And I think it's interesting how really at the end of the episode, Book is sitting with him for a minute, and he's like, "Oh, you knew this, and he even thinks that he knows who caused it." And Tarka says that he doesn't. Do you believe him? Because I didn't. I feel like Book has some very good intuition when it comes to reading people.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Tarka knows more than he's saying. And I think Book is I'm just so in love with David Ajala at this point. Like he is the reason I'm watching right now. Because he's so they've given him so much opportunity to sort of be this much more complete and fuller person, and I'm really enjoying it, and I'm enjoying that we get to see some of his now he's his modern day savvy that maybe some of the others might not have caught on to, but Book's got his number, and I'm looking forward to seeing what transpires between them. Even the whole, like, whatever he was indicating when Tarka touched his neck and was showing Book that scar on his neck, like, there's something interesting there about something that reveals to Book that we may not understand.
Yeah, I was gonna ask if I missed something from that. If I'm like, do we know what that mark that it seemed like it was a scar in a way that like something that you can't really remove, but it had gotten worn away. Did that speak to you, or is it just more of like, oh, this is intriguing? It's not anything that you actually remembered.
It was intriguing, and also I just rewatched The Matrix this week, so
Oh, sweet.
so I was like, oh, it's like the scar from the plug on The Matrix, um, which is not true, but that's what came to mind for me.
By
I'm
the way, let
still-
just a detour. Is your Matrix rewatch going to go the way that it should, where you watch the first one and then you'll watch the new one, or are you going to watch the two sequels
we're
from
gonna
the
watch the
2000?
two sequels as well.
Okay, well, you let me know how it goes because I don't remember those very well,
I don't
and
remember them at all, which is why we're
yeah,
gonna watch them.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's probably smart, but yeah, okay, so it's not just me. The we had the whatever that was. It's something that's going to be revealed in the future. It's
Yeah.
not something that we should know what it is at this point. So yeah, I mean, look, Tarka is definitely a very familiar sort of character, but I think that dynamic will be welcome. We're talking about sort of the lack of conflict. And when you had Giorgio on the show, there was constantly a voice in the room of like, well, here's why what you're saying is stupid,
Right.
because I'm smarter than you are. Well, this guy's smarter than probably everybody on the ship. So it'll be interesting to sort of see where it is, what he knows, and how this
Hmm.
speaks to how this really speaks to the threat of the season, which is crawling along, as we said. But did you appreciate the shout out to the Q continuum and how there had not been apparently there's been no contact for 600 years, which I think that tells me that obviously not that Jean-Luc, aka JL, lived 300 years, but I do think that means that for the Q that we know as Q, probably when Jean-Luc finally dies, the whole universe becomes just so less interesting to him.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually got super excited at the notion of, I was like, oh yes, please let it be a Q, please let it be Q. But I would have loved that, actually. Although it seems too destructive for them. It's
Well, yeah, but could there be a younger Q in the grand sense of things who did make a mistake and doesn't know how to fix it? Sort of like think of a wizard who casts a spell but doesn't know how to uncast it.
There
So
you
some
go.
way. And I will tell you, I'm on record as much as I love John Delancey's portrayal. I'm not a huge fan of the Q character. This season of Star Trek Discovery, I would welcome a visit from any member of the Q Continuum, even if it's Corbin Burnson. That's fine. I would love to, but it also would be interesting. And I did get the feeling, maybe like you did, that no, we're not going to see them this week. But just mentioning that they hadn't been around in a while, I feel like that's setting the stage for us to actually have a visit with them before the end of the season.
And it also, to me, didn't we don't we already know that the Q's going to show up in Picard? Do we already know that?
We do know that. I don't know. See, to me, that's not a spoiler because it's out there before the shows even come close to premiering. They've said it. It might have even been referenced in the teaser trailer for it,
I
but
think it was.
everyone
Yeah,
has said that he's in it, and I believe Guinan's supposed to be in this season as
she
well.
is.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
So I
So,
think it might be an interesting. I think that maybe, at the very least, they brought up the Q just because they're going to be in Picard. Like maybe it was just a little like, hey, let us
well,
remind you that that they exist because they're coming up in Picard.
they've talked about how the DMA seems to have been created for quick travel through space, but also through time. Do you think that that could bring us to the crossover that maybe we don't need, but would appreciate a Picard Discovery crossover in some way? Do you feel like that maybe they're setting the stage for that?
There's been enough references, I think, to Picard this
Yeah,
season that maybe that they're setting the stage for something that could be interesting. I can't imagine. I can't imagine what they're going to do with Picard, so I can't even imagine how they would do a crossover. But I feel like there's something interesting there about how often we've heard Picard referenced this season, how often we've heard
yeah.
this time period. Well, I guess that makes sense that they would reference the time period, but I don't know, maybe that'd be kind of neat.
Well, look, as long as he wears an eye patch in season two, I think that that's
No,
probably all
as
we're going
long
to
as
need.
there's nobody there who calls him LJ.
No, excuse me, JL.
JL, sorry, Jean-Luc.
Yeah. Yeah,
JL, oh, it's terrible.
if we just kind of conveniently forgot about Michelle Hurd's character and they just made no acknowledgement to it, that would be fine,
That would
but
be okay.
I
Yeah.
somehow doubt that that's the case. Let's get back to Tarka for a second because our friend in the chat, Craig, mentions I thought with Tarka, we were gonna get the familiar brash guy storms in and gets humbled by the lesser folks at the end trope. I did like that he was in no way humbled, and he was just like, and it is an interesting point that he's like, no, we didn't really, we didn't use the power, but if I had it on this scale and I was able to, and this much power wasn't enough, that lets me know at least a little bit more of what we're dealing with. But yeah, I mean, it got dangerously close to killing everyone just to test your theory. So yeah, I mean, it seems like he's around for a little while. They didn't usher him off the ship in the course of this episode, so I guess we'll have to see where it goes from here. Let's talk a little bit about the evacuation, sort of that storyline, the Burnham book storyline. This idea that just because people are prisoners doesn't mean that they deserve to be left behind to perish, which seems like a fairly simple concept, one that would be looked at in the 23rd century, let alone the 31st. But it's the whatever the chancellor, the guy who ruled that colony. It seemed like it was crazy talk to him, but I did think it was sort of an interesting lesson in the one character whose name I remember being Felix because that's my son's name. That character, the idea of like, no, I actually did do the bad thing, so I don't think I should really get the opportunity, that idea, and I think that sort of moral dilemma seems to have more repercussions for the way Book thinks of Michael. What did you think of the way that all played out, Nikki?
I first of all, I felt that there was so much conversation, so much arguing about whether or not they wanted to be saved that
Yeah.
at some point I literally at some point I got up from my chair and I said, "Well, just let him die then." Shit.
Yeah.
Because I was like, why are we having so much conversation about whether or not you want to be saved and
Yeah.
how you want to be saved? Um, I do think it'll be interesting to see, you know, Burnham was right. She had to allow this man to exercise his own agency. Um, but I also think that's one more blow to Book, one more blow to
Yeah.
his heart and soul and everything that he's been through. Um, I don't think it'll necessarily negatively impact his relationship with Burnham, but I do think you know I think it just occurred to me like right now, how one of the things that one of the key character points about Burnham is that she feels like she has to save everybody.
Yeah.
In this moment, she didn't. She felt like, I think a previous Burnham would have forced that guy to go. But I
Yeah.
think it was an interesting moment of growth for her to see that she could allow him to make his own decision.
Yeah, I think that you're right. I mean that little bug clearly is in the back of her mind. This idea that she's always trying to save people, and yes, there are people who don't want to be saved. And I think that I guess Book would have preferred. They did the old frying pan to the back of the head and dragged him outside of that little stasis field and made him show up on the ship. So yeah, I think I don't know. I disagree, and I feel like it's like another thing. There's sort of been these moments all season where you're right. It's kind of chipping away at Book a little bit, and I don't know. Maybe he will indeed be a changed man, not for the better, by the end of the season. He's
Mm.
having. There's a lot for him to deal with, and when he finds out who's responsible for the DMA, how is he going to be able to handle that? I mean, if it's an actual person who you can, wring their neck and lift up in the air, that could be a problem. Because he won't really be able to see rationally. For the second consecutive episode, we had Cronenberg back, David Cronenberg back as Kovich. And I thought that, something that we knew about Dr. Culber for the season was that you could start to see that it was taking a little toll on him, but he was trying to be a good soldier, I guess, literally, and trying to help out and do as much as he can. And sort of very similar dilemma that faces Burnham week in, week out. This idea of like, well, I have to save everyone, and I mean, with him, it's in his job description, I guess. And I liked that we got this sort of very blunt assessment, which is why I think the Kovich character works so well. What did you think, sort of, about his 8-minute meeting with Hugh?
I really appreciated Wilson Cruz's ability um to show us that the character was starting to break down before anything was said about it. So I felt like that was a great performance piece. Um and I thought that the conversation reminded me of some things that I had kind of forgotten about Colbert. Is Colbert, right?
Culber, yeah.
Colbert. I had forgotten that he died and came back. Like I had forgotten that, and um,
It's not something that I forget about every week in every episode, but it's not something that is always in the forefront of my mind. The sort of the in the early episodes after he came back, yeah, it was a major point of it, but it's almost like they sort of brushed past it. Maybe it was a lot of like last season they didn't deal with it as much. But you're right. It is easy to forget because either he was okay with it, or as we're starting to see, he just didn't let himself deal with it, right?
mhm, yeah, yeah, and so I think it's really it was I think it was well done in that it reminded us that he had this trauma that he was still trying to process himself while also helping all these other people process their trauma. And again, another place where it speaks to the now, like what we're dealing with here in the 21st century. Are we in the 21st century?
This is the
Where
31st century
no, I mean
on Star Trek, but in
in
real
our
life,
lives, yeah, in real
well,
life.
in my mind, this is the 31st century that we're in. But sure,
But
I'll
it
humor you and say it's the
Thank you, I
21st.
appreciate
Yeah.
it. But in our current situation, when we're dealing with where we have people dealing with trauma upon trauma upon trauma, I thought it again was another moment that spoke to what we're dealing with in the here and now and reminding us that we need to rest. Like that was like
Yeah.
I love that message from Star Trek reminding us that we need to rest, which is one of those things that, I'm not gonna go on my whole anti-capitalist thing, but we don't take rest as seriously as we should. And so I kind of like that Star Trek is reminding us to rest now.
Yeah, no, I know. It's for anybody that's done international business. Try and get in touch with someone who works in Europe in August, and they'll be like, well, "What are you doing?" I'm on holiday. Oh, when you'll be back? September. You know,
Wow.
it's like
Yeah.
we're just taking some real time off, and the idea of like, well, of course we would work through the weekend. Yeah, I think there is something, and I believe that this show is definitely, sort of being a commentary on the modern day, as it so often does. This idea of like sometimes you do need to take that time, and it doesn't have to be taking a whole summer off, but sometimes you might need, what, for Colbert, let's start with half a day. Let's
Right.
let's do you want to punch out Friday afternoon, give yourself a little bit of a long weekend. So I think that that's something that's going to continue in the weeks ahead, as we see sort of the pressure of, as we've been talking about the last couple of weeks, of being the ship's doctor and the ship's counselor.
I also
So
thought it was. I
go ahead.
also wanted to, before we move on from
Yeah,
this, I also thought it was interesting that we didn't see most of the usual bridge crew.
yeah,
And so I thought, my thought was, oh, they must be resting too. Like this required R&R. Finally, they're not the ones on the deck on the bridge. That said, I missed them,
yeah.
and it was nice to see Commander Reese get to step up and do something.
That's what I was going to actually mention next. It was nice that we're wanting to see more of them, and a lot of what he did, yes, happened off screen. But the idea of like, I'd really like to spearhead this mission, and he's in charge. We did get to see him sort of in that take charge kind of role, and I do hope that we will get to see more of that. Let's take a moment and talk about, before we wonder about where the rest of the season and next week will go. A couple of the Easter eggs. I always head over to Den of Geek to point these out, but sometimes you can catch them yourselves first. Which there were a couple of names of starships. There
The
was a USS
Janeway, yeah.
Janeway, yes, which
Mm-hmm.
is always nice to hear. There was also a ship which we'll assume was from Navarre, the T'Pau, which is, of course, a character from the original series episode Amok Time. And I think that that is, it's always nice to hear. And yeah, what you're saying, I always say her name wrong, but Osokan and Detmer, we didn't get them at all, like not even sitting
Yeah.
there in the back. So I guess we'll just hope that this means that they're going to get a lot of screen time next week. But and then of course we had the shout out to Riza, which, as we all know, is the place to just go back and relax. That's always fun. That consistently through the centuries, that seems to be the really the spring break destination of Starfleet. Is yeah, but if we can get over to Riza, that's really where it's going to be. And also something I guess I didn't catch, but Den of Geek did catch. Tig Notaro was actually listed in the opening credits, so hopefully that
Oh,
means that we'll see her for the next few weeks. And that means that even though she wasn't in the first 4 episodes, maybe we'll get a good chunk in the middle of the season. So a couple of those things are nice to jump out. The nods to Star Trek history, which extends beyond 50 years at this point. We're pretty much 55 years. So, in terms of the DMA and some of these character stories that are sort of moving along, as we'll euphemistically say, at a deliberate pace. What are some of the things that you're hoping we see next week, and where you hope that they're taking these stories throughout the rest of the season, Nikki?
ooh. Well, one thing I thought was really interesting, and Craig just brought it up in the chat. Um,
Yeah, let me bring it up. What did you think of Burnham's reaction to Zora developing emotions? There was that. Yeah, this is a recent development, and Burnham's like clearly doesn't have the time to deal with it, but she's like, yeah, this might not be good,
yeah,
you know.
I thought I was actually really happy when Burnham, asked Zora if you run all this through the sphere data,
Yeah.
because I was like, oh yeah, right. Thank you finally for somebody using the sphere data.
See,
But
I think that they listened to you because you asked about Tignataro, you asked about the sphere data, and we got both of them. Well, at least a
both of them,
reference to the sphere data. Yeah.
yeah, there we go. Um, I'm actually looking forward to seeing how what I'm one of the things that I'm looking forward to the most actually is seeing how the ship computer with emotions handles whatever comes up next. And so the way that they threw that in there as something that we need to know, but we're not going to deal with right now, that's going to be something good and juicy later. I'm looking forward to that. That's going to be good.
Yeah, I think so. And then it also would be interesting if the ship gets damaged, because then it's like, hey, it really doesn't feel good,
Right?
you know?
Is the ship going to be like, ouch, ouch?
Yeah. So, yeah, I think that, they're definitely, putting some breadcrumbs out for us. That is something very interesting to think about. And I'm glad that Craig mentioned it, because that the potential for what that could mean in the weeks ahead is certainly could go a lot of different ways. And that sphere data, really, there's a potential for that to be a huge problem, and they keep sort of pushing past it. And we'll see if the Zora's emotions should actually definitely make you concerned about the whole reason you ended up in the future to begin with. um, Speaking of the future, the next time that we do this show will not be next week because of my own family obligations. But also, I just know I won't be able to watch on Thursday. We're going to roll right into Christmas Eve. But we will be back Monday, the 27th, not next Monday because we just did this episode today, but Monday, the 27th, we will be back at 3 p.m. Pacific time, and that is 6 p.m. Eastern. It'll be myself, it'll be Nikki, and we will also be joined by someone known for creating new content every
Every
week.
day, week.
And now every day. It went from every week to every day. The one and only Flobo Boys, DJ Flobito,
Woohoo!
will be with us. He has his own show, Commander's Log, which you can find on your various Flobito platforms. But it'll be great because I've traded messages with him, but I haven't really talked to him much about Discovery this season. I want to know where he's at. And yeah, look, Craig obviously is rightly excited about Flobito, and we will be happy to have him. So we'll be at that slot for the next couple of Mondays at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern. So the one after that is what, January 3rd, and then we'll see about the week after that because I'm going to be in New York. So I think that that'll make for another instance of a Monday, but we'll see. We'll get to that in the new year. But definitely the next 2 Mondays, we will be there, and we hope that all of you are able to go with us on a Monday. It'll give you plenty of time to watch and get caught up on the show. But until Monday, Nikki, where can people keep in touch with you?
They can find me at nikkibaileycomedy.com or at nikkibailey underscore on all the social medias.
And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at ChristianDMZ. Please subscribe to the Blackcast YouTube channel, BLADTCAST. And you'll always know when this show is going to be going live, and some of our other shows, including Marvel Movie Talk, where just yesterday we covered the 5th episode of Hawkeye with some exciting things that happened there. And we will have a special episode tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, where we will dive into all of the spoilers about Spider-Man No Way Home.
I'm going tonight. I can't wait.
I think you might enjoy it. I just have a
Yay.
hunch. I am excited for everybody to see it. it's a very hard movie to talk about because there's so many rumors and hopes and expectations for what might be in it that you can't comment on anything because you're like, what does that mean? It's so far so good. I know that there are instances of people being shitty on the internet and social media about it, but for the most part, I think people are being very respectful. It's a movie that I hope everybody gets a chance to see without having anything ruined for them ahead of time. But the longer you
That's
wait,
why
the
you
more
got to
likely it
go
is.
early. That's why
Yeah,
you got to go early.
that's what Nikki's going tonight. So I hope everybody enjoys it, and they're also able to join us tomorrow night at 9 Pacific, midnight Eastern, and I believe we'll have a couple of episodes where we talk Spidey. So that's why it just helps to subscribe to the Black Cats YouTube channel, and I'll mention one more time: BLADTCAST. Well, that is all the time that we have for this week. I hope that those of you who are so inclined have a Merry Christmas in the week ahead before our next episode. And if I may shout out my Star Wars friends, happy Life Day, everyone. I hope that all the Wookiees on Kashyyyk, the Wookiee homeworld, don't have any Imperial entanglements and they get to celebrate Life Day the way it was intended. Although, to be fair, Life Day's gotten a little commercial the last decade or so. But, what can we do? In any case, we will see everybody before the new year. We'll see you after Christmas, the 27th. Until then, as Craig says, let's fly and live long and prosper.